Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to part 2 of the Flask application that we're building. Now, in the last video, we set up the home page, the About, Articles, which is pulling the data from a file. Now we want to set up a database, okay? We're going to be using MySQL. So if you're on Windows, you can download and install MySQL on its own, or you could use something like XAMPP or WAMP that is going to give you MySQL, Apache, and PHP, and so on. So you need to do that. I'm on Linux, so I'm just going to use my package manager. So I'm going to say sudo apt-get install, and we want to install mysql-server, and also the client, which is going to be lib mysql what is it? Yeah, lib mysql client-dev. All right, now I already had that stuff installed, so it went quick. You'll be prompted for a password for your database, for your root user, so just make sure that you remember that. Okay, so now that that's done, what I'm going to do is go into MySQL, and create our database and users table and so on, because when the user registers, it's going to go into the users table. So let's see, I'll clear this out, and we just want to say MySQL-u. I'm going to log in as the root user, and it's going to take a password, so -p, and then enter, and then you want to put that password that you used when you installed it. So now we're in MySQL. I'm going to first just say show databases. Okay, so I already have a Flask app, so I'm going to create a new database called myFlask app. Okay, and then we're going to say use myFlask app. Database changed. Now we want to create the users table. So let's say create table users. And in here we're going to put our fields that we want. So we want an ID. That's going to be an integer or an int. And we'll say the maximum characters will be 11. We also want this to be auto increment. And we want this to be the primary key as well. Alright, so then we'll put a comma. Next field is going to be name. That's going to be a varchar, a variable character. And let's see, we'll put some parentheses. That's going to have a max of 100. Okay, the next one's going to be username, which will also be varchar. And we'll say 30 for the max for the username. Then we want password, varchar, and let's say 100. This is actually going to be a password hash. It's going to be encrypted using SHA-1. Okay, so let's see, password, I think that's it. Oh, email. I actually want to put email before username. So right here, I'll say email, oops, varchar, let's do 100, and then a comma. Okay, then after the password, we're going to put in the register date. Okay, and that's going to be a timestamp. And we want to set the default for this to the current underscore timestamp. That way we don't have to worry about it. It'll just get put in automatically. All right, so let's go ahead and run that. And now we'll do, let's say, show tables. And we have a users table. If we say describe users, there's nothing in it. Okay, good. So that's what we want. Now there's a few things that we need to install using pip. So I'm going to just stop the server for a second here. Control C, and then let's clear this out. And we want to install Flask Mysqldb. That's the module that we're going to use to basically communicate with MySQL. So we'll say pip install MySQLdb Flask dash MySQLdb. Okay, In addition to that, we want WT forms, which is a module to help us with form validation, different types of fields, and so on. So let's say pip install, and that's going to be flask dash WTF. All right. And then we also want to install passlib, which is going to help with hashing our passwords. So pip install passlib. Okay, so now that that's done, let's go ahead and just run our app again. So python app.py. Okay, everything's still working. And we're going to start to work on the registration. So I want to just first import some stuff up here. In addition to this stuff from Flask, we want to include Flash, which we can use for Flash messages, redirect, and that'll obviously handle redirection. We also need URL underscore for. We want session, and let's see, is that it? Oh, logging. Okay, so that's all stuff we want to bring in from Flask. And then we want to import Flask Mysqldb. So we'll say from Flask underscore Mysqldb. We want to import MySQL. All right, and then for WT forms, we'll say from WT forms. Is that right? Yeah. We're going to import form, and then each type of field we're going to use. So string field, text area field, password field, and then validators. Okay, and then let's also import the passlib hash. So we'll say from passlib.hash. We want to import SHA-256 underscore crypt. Okay, that has to do with encrypting our password. So now that we did that, let's go down and let's create. Let's see, we're going to have to create a register route as well as the form class. So I'm actually going to go to the WT forms documentation. And right here, the form class, what we have to do, right here, we need to create a class for each form. So let's go right here and say class register form. And let me see, we need to pass in form as a parameter. Okay, put a colon, and then we want each field. Okay, so we want a name field. So we'll say name equals string field. And then in here we want the readable version, which will have an uppercase N. And then we want to include the validators. So we'll say validators dot length. Actually, that should be an uppercase L. And then we can set the minimum. We'll set equal to 1, and then the max we'll set equal to 50 for the name. Okay, next we'll have username. That's also going to be a string field. And let's see, validators dot length, and for that we're going to do minimum 4. And maximum, let's do 25 for the max. Okay, so name, username, we need email, string field, email. That's going to have, whoops, validators dot length. Min will set to, let's see, we'll set it to 6, and then max we'll set to 50. Alright, so now the password, which is going to be password field. Okay, so for this, we're going to have a couple validators, so let's put a space here. So we want validators dot, and I'm going to say data required. Okay, and then we also want this to, we're going to have two fields. One will be a password, one will be a confirm, and those need to match. So let's say validators dot equal to, and it's going to be equal to a field called confirm, and then we can put a custom message. We'll just say passwords do not match. Alright, and then finally we'll have a confirm field and set that to a password field, and we'll just say confirm password for the label. Okay, so that should do it as far as the class goes. Now we need the route, so I'm going to put that directly underneath it. So app.route, and this is going to be /register. Now with this route, by default all of these routes, they accept GET requests, which is basically just going to the page and loading it. But this one we also want POST requests to be accepted because we're going to submit our form to this. So for that we need to describe methods and set that to GET and POST. Whoops. Okay, so it'll accept gets and posts. And then just like with the other ones, we need a function, call it register. Whoops. And let's see, we're going to create a form variable and set it equal to the register form that we just created. Okay, and that's also going to take in request.form. Now request is something that actually needs to be brought in. I'm not sure if I did it. No, I didn't. So in here, anywhere, I'm just going to say request. Okay. So registration form, let's see, what else are we doing here? Now we need to check to see if it's a POST request or a GET request to this route. So for that, we're going to say if request.method is equal to POST, and we also want to make sure everything's validated, so we're going to say and form.validate. Okay, and then if it's a POST, we'll go on to register the user and all that. But I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to just go back to the same level as the if statement, not inside of it, and we want to render the template. So we want to return render template, and it's going to be the register.html, and we just want to pass along the form values, so just like that. Okay, we're passing this into our template. So let's save that. We'll come back to this right here to what we actually do when the user submits the form. And we're going to create in templates a new file called register.html. Alright, and just for now, I just want to test it out, so let's just save that. And let's see, we'll go, I gotta start the server back up. Actually, what's this? I have a error, return render template. Return render underscore template. Expected an indented block. Alright, let's just do return. Actually, we'll return the template in here, I guess, as well. Okay, so now it's started. Okay, so if we go to /register, there we go. So we know that that register route is working. All right, so let's see. Now I guess what we'll do is create the actual form. So let's go to register HTML, and I'll just bring in, I'll just copy home or one of these, doesn't really matter. Paste that in and get rid of this stuff. Okay, let's put in H1 and we'll just say register. And now what we want to do is create the form. So let's put in our form tag that's going to have a method, which is going to be post, because it's going to make a post request, and then we can leave the action blank. It'll automatically submit to the register or to this file. Okay, and then in here we're going to create a div and give it a class of form group, which is a bootstrap class. And then we're not going to actually put the input tags in right in here. We're going to use the WT form syntax, which is going to be render, let's see, render underscore field, and this is going to be form dot name. And then if we want to add a class, we can simply add another parameter here and say class, and then we're going to use this underscore equals and then the class name, which is going to be form control. Alright, and then we'll just copy this whole div, paste it in a couple more times. So this next one will be username. This one will be, actually let's do email and then username. Okay, then we want password and then confirm. Okay. And then we need a button at the bottom. So I'll just put a paragraph with an input. Type will be submit. Value will be submit. And we don't need a name. I'm also going to add a class of btn and then btn primary, which is a bootstrap class. Alright, so that's our form. Now we also need what's called a form helper, and that's going to define how each field looks, whether it has a label or if you want to add extra classes or whatever. So inside of includes, we're going to create a new file called underscore form, not form template, form helpers .html. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm using the default one that's in the documentation. Let me see if I can find it. I know it was a bitch to find before. Yeah, I don't know exactly where it is, but I'm just going to paste it in. You guys can just copy it. It's actually in the form of a macro. So we have this macro render field, and then the label will be shown, and then we have this weird stuff, this quarg safe. I'm not exactly sure what some of this stuff is. And then if there's an error, it'll display that error, and I have it in a span with the class of help inline. So that's a bootstrap class, and then the error will show directly underneath the field, which is nice. So let's save that. And let's go back to our application. Render field is undefined. Okay, so we actually have to include the form helpers partial that we created. So we're going to do that right above the form tag. And we can just say include. And that's going to be, actually no, we're going to do from include slash underscore form helpers dot html, and we want to import render field. All right, let's try that. There we go. It looks like the class form control is not rendering. Oh, you're missing an S on class. There we go. Okay, so that's our register form. If we try and submit, you'll see that we get the errors spit out right underneath the field. All right, so I think that's really cool how they do that, and how it's so easy to add fields and stuff and validation. So now that we did that, we want to handle the submission. Okay, so let's go to app.py, go down to our register route here, and we want to work inside here. Okay, because we're saying if the request is post, meaning if the form is submitted, then what do we want to do? Actually, you know what? We need to set up MySQL first. We didn't include the configs. It doesn't know what database to use or any of that. So let's go up top. And let's see. We're going to go right here. And let's say config MySQL. So we can take our app variable and say .config. And in here, actually this needs to be brackets. And then this will be MySQL underscore host. And we'll set that equal to localhost. Localhost, and then let's see, we're gonna do, I'll just copy this. So host, then we have user, which is going to be root, and let's see what else, password. You want to use whatever you chose for a password, and then DB, so the database we want to use, which is my Flask app, unless you called it something different. And then this last one is going to be cursor class. Okay, so basically when we work with Flask Mysqldb, let me just pull up the documentation because it's a little hard to explain. Let's see, Flask Mysqldb. All right, so you'll see right here. So this is an example. So we're creating a cursor using the connection.cursor, and then using that cursor we can call methods like execute, where we can run our queries. All right, so it's kind of like a handler. So what we want to do is, by default, this is going to return a tuple, which is a certain type of, it's a certain data type in Python. We want it to return as a dictionary, which is basically kind of like a hash in Rails or an associative array in PHP, or a JavaScript object. It's closer to that with key value pairs. So what we want to do is set the default cursor class to dictionary. So we can actually do that by saying, actually let's do dict. Why this isn't working? Dict cursor. Like that. And I believe, yeah, that should just work automatically. I don't think I have to import anything for that. Okay, so now that we have all the configs, we want to initialize MySQL. Oops. All right, so we want to say MySQL, and we'll set that equal to MySQL, and then we just want to wrap up the app variable. So now we can use this to create our cursors and make queries. Now I'm going to save this, make sure there's no errors. Okay. And then we're going to go down to register, to this right here. All right, so if it's post, then we will first want to get the form values. We'll put them in variables, so we can get it from form.name.data. Oops. I gotta shut that off. Okay, we also want the email. Form.email.data. Username. what else? Password. So password form password dot data. Now the password we need to encrypt before we submit it. Okay, so we're actually going to wrap that. We're going to wrap the plain text password in SHA-256 crypt. Oops. Okay, like that. And it's actually going to be SHA-256 crypt dot encrypt, and then this should be wrapped in str, wrapped in string function. And I think that should do it. Okay, so now, so now we're going to create the cursor. Oops. And we can do that. We'll create a variable cur and set that to mysql dot connection dot cursor. Okay, so now we can use this cursor to execute commands. So let's say cur dot execute, and we want to execute an insert statement. So let's say insert into users, and then the fields, which will be name, email, username, password. Okay, and then we want values. Okay, now we're going to be using string replacement, so we're going to put this 4 fields, so we want 4% signs. Oops. Okay, so these are just going to get replaced with what we put here next. So we want to put a comma right here, and then the fields. So I'm going to open up another set of parentheses, and we're going to say name, email, username, password. Okay, so these are all the variables that we assigned up here. Okay, we want to insert all that data into the database. I'm just going to turn on wrap, because there we go, toggle soft wrap. So that'll make it so that you guys can see everything no matter how thin the window is. So that's the execution. Now it's not going to do this yet until we commit. So let's go down here and say commit to DB. For that, we're going to take mysql dot connection and call dot commit. All right, and then finally we want to close the connection, and we can say cur dot close. All right, now I also want to set a flash message once we're registered. So we're going to say flash, and then in here we're going to put the message, and we'll just say you are now registered. Did I spell that right? Registered and can log in. Now with flash messaging, we can also create categories. This is a successful message, so I'm going to say success. All right, and then finally we want to redirect. We don't want to render the template here, so I'm going to get rid of that, and then we'll say redirect. And when you redirect, you have to use this URL for. Okay, and then in here we can put where we want to go, which will be index. Okay, so I think that's good. Let's save it. Now for the flash messaging, this is where we initialize it, but we need a place for it to basically display inside of our template. So what I'll do here is create another include. So templates includes, and this is going to be underscore messages.html. And then in here, we need to write a bunch of crap for the messaging. So we'll say with messages. Actually, let me see if I can just find it in the documentation. Okay, so let's see. So they initialized it here. And then we need to do this, but we're using categories, so we'll go down to flashing with categories and just grab this. All right. And then we want to change this. We don't want these to be in a UL. We want it to be in a div. So right here we'll say div. And then the class is going to be, remember we're using Bootstrap, so alert, and then we want alert dash, dash, and then whatever category we pass in. We said success, so it'll be alert success. Now with Bootstrap, if you want it to be red, it's going to be alert danger. So you want to pass in danger as the category. All right, hopefully that makes sense. So let's go ahead and save that. And then we're going to put this out in the layout. I guess we'll go like right above the block here. All right, and then we'll just say includes / messages.html. Okay, so let's make sure everything still works. I'm just going to restart the server. Okay. And let's see. Let's add a register link up here in on the right. So we'll go to our nav bar. And then let's see. I'm just going to copy this URL. I mean this UL. And then just add a class of navbar right. And then this will be register. All right, so let's save that. Register, click on that. Good. So at least it loads the form okay. There's no errors. Let me just make sure everything is all set. And yeah, so all right, let's try it out. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Submit. The session is unavailable because no secret key was set. So in order to use sessions, we need to just set a secret key. So let's go in our app.py down at the bottom, or you could put it anywhere really. Let's see. Yeah, I think I can put it here. So if I say app.secret_key, and I'm just going to set that to, I don't know, secret 1, 2, 3. Should probably be more secure than that, but that should work. Let's reload. Whoa. Okay, so I don't think I ended a div or something. Let's go check out messages. Okay, so this is ending in an li. But aside from that, I think everything went okay. So let's see if we're actually registered. We'll go into MySQL, and let's say describe users. Not describe users. Let's do a query. We'll say select all from users. Okay, so, oh, it went in twice, it looks like. Not sure. Oh, it went in the first time, and then I reloaded, and it went in again. But that's fine. Let's actually try to register again, just to make sure that it's not going to do it twice all the time. Passwords don't match. Okay, you are now registered and can log in. So let's go back to MySQL, and again we'll do the select, and John Doe's only in there once. Good. So you can see that there's the name, the user, the email, the username, and then this long hashed password, and then the date. Now when we submit our form, I want this to redirect us to the login form. So let's go Oh, yeah, for some reason this didn't work. And that's because I didn't return it. And let's see, I'm not sure where I want it to go. So they register. I would imagine we'd want them to go to the login page. So let's change that to login. And that should do it. So we can now register users. Hopefully that wasn't too difficult, or hopefully I explained it good enough. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. In the next video, we're going to implement the login, where we can, go in and compare the username and password, make sure it matches, and it'll let us in, and we'll create the dashboard. All right, so thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe if you're not already, and that's it. I will see you next time.